It's so great to be back with our speaker series. We rescheduled one that we had scheduled for Friday, so it's great to be back with everybody and to see some new faces and to partner with our friends at the Cleveland Institute of Art. So I want to thank Heather and colleagues from CIA for putting this together. And sitting in my fake Zoom background is the Stickbox, which is our makerspace on campus, and which is where our Veale Institute of Entrepreneurship is based. And let me first, because I didn't introduce myself, say who I am. My name is Michael Goldberg, and I'm the executive director of our Veale Institute for Entrepreneurship, and I teach at Weatherhead. And our offices for Veale are at ThinkBox when campus reopens. And one of the amazing things about ThinkBox is it is a community makerspace and open to the community. And we've had great partnership, both formally and informally, with the Cleveland Institute of Art, and seeing students from CIA and faculty from CIA and graduates from CIA creating and using some of the different tools and machinery. So we do look forward when ThinkBox opens back up, which, knock on wood, will hopefully be this summer, to be back together in person with our friends from CIA. So I want to turn it over to Jill, who's a CIA student, who's going to be our moderator. The format for all of our Veale Entrepreneurship Speaker Series events is student moderation, so it's awesome to partner with you, Jill, as our moderator. So we'll let you do the most of the work, but it's great to have folks on the call here on Zoom, but also on Facebook Live. And please go ahead and use the Zoom chat or the hand raise function to let Jill know if you want to ask Sequoia and Amalia a question directly. We really do like to get people directly involved. If your internet isn't great, or if you're joining on Facebook Live, you can sort of post a question and Jill can ask it directly. And we're looking forward to it. So with that, I will flip it over to Jill, who will run the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. So if you're not familiar with me, my name is Jill Sanders. I am a rising senior in animation at CIA. I specialize in character animation and experimental animation. But yeah, so I'm really excited to kind of moderate and ask all these questions that I have prepared and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear you guys' responses and stuff. Sequoia, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. So my name is Sequoia Bostick. I'm going to be one of the speakers for this panel. I also graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Art in 2014. I got a BFA in illustration, and I decided to just pursue art in general, but mostly like the illustration-based, so comics, and also applying my art to anything that I can. So, and Amalia.
Hi, I'm Amalia DeGirolamo. I also graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Art in 2014. Same class as Sequoia, also illustration. So ever since then, been dabbling in comics and zines on the free time, in my free time. But as my day job, I work full time as an illustrator and graphic designer, mostly for everything from apparel to like hydration and food products. It's a little bit of everything. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Amalia, we haven't talked yet, but hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick, I saw your work on Instagram and it's amazing, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Job.
I was about to say the same for you. I absolutely adore your work. It's
thank you.
Phenomenal. So awesome. So without further ado, do you guys want to jump into the questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, great.
Sure.
First off, I wanted to start with, could you just explain what Vagabond Comics is to people who might not know how it works or what it is, and kind of what inspired you to create it?
All right, you can go ahead, Amalia.
Okay. So we started Vagabond Comics back in 2015, about a year after we graduated. So, we were a year out of school, and, we were in the process of trying to find footholds for our careers and figure out what we wanted to do. And around this time, we also started going to comic book shows Specifically, we started out at Genghis Khan, which is the local indie comic show that happens every fall here in Cleveland. Highly recommend it. So we were thinking, at this point, we really wanted to kind of find a platform to kind of motivate ourselves to create work and to showcase our work. And a bunch of our friends were in the same boat, where we know all these talented people who are fresh out of art school and weren't doing anything with their work. And so we wanted to kind of create an excuse for them to do that. And so we got together four of our friends, and we said, look, we're putting together this book, and you each are going to make comics, and you're going to put it in it, and it's going to be great. And then, so after almost a year later, and a lot of herding cats and postponing, we finally got out the first issue, and it turned out great, and we've just been going ever since. Sequoia, anything to add?
No, that was pretty much pretty much it. Like we did find it very challenging at the beginning because, like, I don't know, you're gonna experience this because you're going to be a senior this year, but the burnout is real, and motivating yourself to do anything after graduation is very hard. So like, I was very happy that we were able to like put this together. Like, after going to a few shows, we saw that there were like people kind of doing something similar where they wanted to just like, you know, create work just for the sake of creating it. But also to like, after working in like the art field for like a year, wanting to do something that's kind of our own thing that's not connected to a corporation or to like a company or anything like that. So, yeah.
Well, and I guess I just realized I completely skipped over the part where I explained what it is. So, so what it is it's an anthology, which to those who aren't familiar it's a collection of a bunch of comics created by a number of artists instead of just like a single work that follows a single narrative like a graphic novel would. Sometimes these can be short works from a single artist, but for our purpose, it's from a number of artists. And I think these are great because it's, for the reader, it's kind of like a sampler platter and, you know, lets people experience a variety of viewpoints and styles and stories in one package. And for artists, it's a nice thing to contribute to because it's a little less intimidating than trying to you know, commit to creating a whole graphic novel. And it can be like, it's just like Wade said, it's just something to do to get yourself to make something and contribute to, you know, a larger work and get involved with other artists. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really great. I guess my next question, kind of going alongside that, was like, as artists, we're always kind of referencing other people's work because, you know, we don't want to reinvent the wheel and we want to be able to be a lot like the people that we look up to and stuff like that. Did you guys reference anyone when even compiling it? Like, as like, were there any other anthologies that you guys looked at kind of being like, taking reference? It's okay if you say no, but I guess
no,
that's my question.
Yeah, so there's a ton of like different kinds of anthologies out there. For me specifically, I saw CCAD, which is another art college in Columbus. They actually have their own anthology called Spitball, which they actually pair writers up with the students who are, you know, studying to be comic book artists. So one of the shows that we went to, I did see like that group there, and I fell in love with just the way they were telling their stories and just how nice and short, and like their anthology, of course, is in full color, which is also amazing. So they are able to like raise their own money to print that out. But there are a variety of like different anthologies even here in Cleveland, specifically John G's Lake Erie Monster series. he usually puts that together with a group of artists every, I don't know, couple of months or so. Right now it's probably like every other year. But yeah, so those were what I was inspired by.
Yeah, I guess for me, anthologies were kind of a newer thing to me. I think what really introduced it to us is like kind of like, oh, this is something we could totally do, is that a show in Columbus, there's a woman named Canada who had talked to Sequoia about like a jam comic or an anthology she had started with her friends, and then that's when Sequoia was like, oh, we should look into this. And then I was like, oh, no. And after her convincing me, and talking to me about it for a couple months, that's when we decided to put it together.
Yeah, cool. So this is kind of more of a vague question, but how did you guys even logistically get started? I mean, what were some of the problems that you guys might have had to overcome to get the ball rolling, or just generally working with big groups of people? This is kind of going to combine two of my questions, but alongside that, do you have any advice for people trying to rally together artists, just from your experiences and the problems that you guys have faced? And even though you guys are working independently, do you face any challenges like not having control of their work, or not being in control of it and just kind of compiling it?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you can go first. We'll just back and forth.
Okay. So yeah, there's this, starting it has definitely been a learning experience, working, wrangling groups of people and just working with people in general. Like prior to this, I've always been more of like a independent person, and I'm very introverted, and like at first this was a nightmare for me. But like it definitely, one of the challenges is definitely finding the people to contribute to your work. So like if you're just starting out, a lot of people will just source among their friends, and that's a fun way to start out anyways. Like, you're working with people that you like, and you guys all have generally like on the same page and have common ideas. But like even with that, you'll find just getting people to finish their stuff and to turn in their work in a timely manner, like you'd be amazed, like how much people just don't care about a deadline, which like to me it was like very shocking to see like fellow people that like had gone to art school and we're studying the same stuff as me, and like we're not holding themselves to acting as professional as you would hope when you're presenting your work. But so that's always a challenge, just actually getting people turned in the work. And then and I guess financially there can be some challenges with actually creating the physical book itself, but there's a lot of ways around that now. Some people will exclusively produce things digitally if they can't print it, which now that's a very viable option, especially with like the pandemic, where a lot of people are doing things on Gumroad where you can just download it so then you don't have to worry about shipping or like going out to a post office. But for us, it was entirely out of our own pockets when we first started. So that we were lucky that we were able to do that. Not everybody might be. Sequoia? Sorry, I lost my train.
No, like pretty much all of what you said, for the most part, like deadlines have always been like a difficult thing to kind of master, and also just like the requirements for submitting to the anthology. A lot of anthologies have their own like requirements, and we find it amazing that like even when we have all the requirements listed out, like there's always going to be issues with that. But also finding out where we can show our work to people, like, and we discovered through like going to comic book shows that we were able to find like a good audience, but that was very difficult at the beginning because there are so many like anthologies out there, but also like you could go to a show where there's no anthologies and you have to kind of sell that work. So.
Gotcha. I did get a notification that someone did ask a question asking how long these anthologies are. One of the other questions that they asked, I'm going to ask a little bit later anyway, so, but just so I don't forget, how long are the comics?
So that also varies from anthology to anthology. Ours, the maximum is like 8 pages, but you can submit a 1-page comic as well. So we always kind of set like a limit so that we can accept as many comics as possible. Because when you're printing, printing can get expensive and stuff like that. Oh yeah, you can go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying the physical books themselves are anywhere between 60 to 100 pages, depending on how many comics we get. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, we also sometimes have to limit it if we're like still in the process of raising funds or getting funds. So we can only accept so many comics in order to print it based on how much money we can get for it.
And I know you talked about it a little bit, but how do you typically distribute these comics?
So our main bread and butter with distributing these comics are going to shows throughout the year. That's where we do most of our sales with the books. We do sell them on, which obviously pretty much everything's been canceled this year, so that's not really an option right now. We do sell them online though. We have both a store where we ship out books to people and also a Gumroad where people can get digital copies for slightly cheaper. So that's mainly what we've been doing lately. Well, I guess that's our only option lately.
Yeah, and also like before the pandemic, sorry. Were you?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. But we also distribute to like local bookstores and comic book shops. So we try to get our books into especially like locally owned comic book shops like Carol and John's and Max Backs. So communicating with those bookstores in order to get our books in there in some form of consignment or just to buy wholesale. That way, you know, you can find the book anywhere.
Gotcha. One of them was a little bit, I'm not sure if you're going to have like a great answer for this, but I'll ask anyway. What would you say is really the goal of these comics or the main takeaway you would want the reader to have? I know that each story is independent based on the person who made it, but was there anything that you feel, at least generally as a takeaway, or you would hope that people would take away from your anthologies?
Well, I guess we started this mostly as, I guess the initial thing that our goal is just to like entertain, just to have, you know, people be able to read stories from all these different people and to like enjoy them. And I guess one of our goals is also to have it be sort of like a gateway into comics for people who might not, you know, who might not typically read them, just because there's so many different, they get to experience and see so many different styles and artists in there that they're bound to find something that they like, and maybe it'll spark their interest to explore them more. So that's, I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, I just like the just all-inclusiveness and the community of having something that can be enjoyed by everyone, but also giving everyone the opportunity to want to create and be a part of something.
Yeah, I actually just got a question from David. Would you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, or would you rather that I read it?
Go ahead. Well, since I'm going to unmute, I'll ask the question. So I'm curious. So I looked at your website while you were talking as well. So have you bootstrapped entirely? So funded this with your own money and relying on revenue, or have you taken professional investments or relied on commercial partners to sort of fund your operations?
So this is purely like out of our own pockets. Like for me specifically, it's not really about the money. It's more about just creating a platform. We do like get sales, like, use the sales to purchase more books, to print more books. And if we have any opportunities where we can pay our artists, we try to use that money for that as well. Amalia.
Yeah, what Sequoia said, like, this is definitely out of our own pockets. It started entirely out of our own pockets, and as we've gone on, the sales from shows and books have been able to kind of help it propel itself for the most part. For a couple of the issues, we have used Kickstarter to fund the printing, which that's been an option, been used very heavily for a lot of indie comics.
That was going to be my next question.
Few years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we've had 2 successful Kickstarters so far, and we usually use those to fund our full-colored issues. Most of the time it's in black and white, but we do try to do like a full-colored issue, and we use Kickstarter for that.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, this is another more funky question, but I was definitely really interested about this, especially as things are definitely getting a lot more political, and people are talking about more issues openly and more communicatively. I don't know if that's a word, but talking about issues a lot more openly with people. And I guess I was wondering how you guys handle politics, if at all, when people want to use them in their comics, or if not, do you foresee people wanting to, or how, I don't know, how do you handle that?
Well, this is definitely something we've talked about amongst ourselves when we've been, choosing the themes for our comics and putting them together. For the most part, we've viewed the anthology as kind of like an escape, and kind of like, just a place where people can, read stories and enjoy them. So we've kind of tried to stay away from themes that would lead towards people getting too political with their stories. But that said, like, if somebody has a story that they want to submit where it does involve politics and it's well told and it's relevant to the theme of the issue, we'd definitely be open to including it. And who knows, like you said, things are changing, and there's important issues that need to be discussed. So as things move forward, it might be something where we'd be open to looking at seeing if we could get more involved with, as far as like, being a platform for those stories. But for the most part right now, we don't feel that we're really the right platform to be showing those, especially when there are so many other comics artists who are doing it much better and in a much more informative fashion. We just aren't sure we'd be doing them justice as far as informing the readers.
Totally agree.
So what demographic do you guys feel you are aiming for typically, or at least the people around you, or the people who are submitting to the anthology, are typically going for? And have you had to make adjustments to better suit that demographic at any point?
Well, we try to keep our comic accessible to a wide variety of people, which is why when we ask people to submit, and we ask them keep it like PG-13 or lower, because we also wanted to be something that younger kids can enjoy, maybe, especially kids or teens who are just discovering comics. And we try to keep our contributors and our demographic open to like a diverse range of people. As far as contributors, we have a pretty wide swath of people. We have a lot of LGBTQ folks, although the amount, although there is an awful lot of straight white dudes, but that's also a problem common with just the comics industry in general. And that's something we've talked about a lot and have been struggling to figure out over the years how we can, make our platform as something that can kind of not keep leading to that, and try to find more diverse voices to be a part of what we're doing. Does that make sense, Sequoia?
Yeah. And I've also have been also trying to lean the demographic more towards younger artists as well. I teach art in K-12 schools around Ohio, around Cleveland specifically, and getting kids who want to pursue comics also involved in any way that we can. But yeah.
So kind of piggybacking on what Amalia, you just mentioned, I was curious, what do you think are problems that you being two, not straight white dude people, have you, what specifically have you dealt with that, you would like to voice, or any advice that you would have for people who are not straight white dudes trying to go into comics?
My opinion's not, I'm also a straight white woman, so though, just letting you know. Let me think. I guess just my recommendation would just be just to keep making work, and sometimes you have to seek out the voices that you want to hear the stories from. So if you find an artist or a creator that you admire who doesn't fall into the usual demographic of straight white dude, support them, follow their work, see what they're doing, surround yourself with the people that you want to, whose work you want to emulate, or or the people that you want to work with. I guess trying to think. I guess we have been mansplained to a lot at comic book shows. That's a specific problem. Can think of I think about it. So some of our friends who that's happened to have been brave enough to tell them off. We tend to just nod and accept that this dude isn't worth our time, and you just got to be able to respect your own work and keep doing what you're doing. I guess, Sequoia, as you would say, #spite?
#spite is what I say.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that is a very common problem. And also going to shows and people not believing that two women are running a comic book thing successfully, because it's usually a very strong men-driven career. But that's changing, which I am enjoying, seeing all types of people making comics, not just men, so. just keep doing what you're doing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So kind of shifting gears, what were some skills that you guys learned at CIA that you really think assisted you when developing this idea, whether from critiques or faculty or just generally upsides and positives from just your education at CIA?
So for me, like, I really enjoyed the business practices class. I don't know if they still do that at CIA, but at the time they had like business practice for like each of the like combined majors, like applied arts, fine arts, and I can't remember what the other one was. But like there was a lot of useful like information that was going out in those classes. I had Adrian Slattery, which I don't know if he's still there. But yeah, he taught me a lot about how to communicate and network, which is very important if you're going to be a working artist. You got to definitely learn how to talk to people and how to be in a public space and present your work without, you know, being all over the place. But also having the opportunity to, within your major, also try out other majors throughout your time at CIA. So you have the opportunity to take, you know, other majors and other classes like bookmaking and computer, like digital arts and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed picking up all of those skills.
Yeah, I think Sequoia pretty much hit the nail on the head with all of those. I guess in addition to that, like one of those extracurriculars that she was talking about, like we got to take a graphic narratives class with Brad Ricka, which kind of jump-started, you know, our interest in pursuing comics more seriously, and showed us like, and introduced us to kind of like the concept of tabling at conventions and selling mini comics, which is pretty much how we started. And you know, bookmaking with Gene Pulaski, which just kind of showed you the ins and outs and the guts of like actually putting together a book. And so that's been very helpful, like editing the comics and creating mini comics, and just putting more care into how you present them. And then just you know, our illustration professors, who at the time they were super old school, and but they were great guys, and just kind of taught you like, you know, the value of really honing like your technical skills, and you know, just taking pride in your work, and trying to be, you know, having professionalism take front and center when you as you know, because you are presenting yourself as a business when you are creating and selling artwork.
Great, and I think we do have a couple of questions. Elizabeth, did you want to introduce yourself and share your question, or would you rather that I share your question?
I can share it. I introduced myself earlier, but again, I'm
hello.
Hi. I'm a rising junior at Case Western, and I'm an intern at the Veale Institute. I'm not an artist myself. I've dabbled in photography, but otherwise not really. But I do have quite a few friends from high school who are now, you know, pursuing art and going to art school. So I was just wondering, like, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, you both have experience with being freelance artists. And in general, it seems like being a working artist goes hand in hand with entrepreneurship. So I was wondering if you have any tips for young artists about how to advocate for yourself professionally and create a career out of your work, and what has been the most helpful in your own careers. I know you just touched on this a little bit, but I was just wondering.
Sure. Do you want to go first, Sequoia, or you want?
Please go ahead.
Okay. So I guess, you know, some tips. Just never, I guess the first thing, just never stop making stuff. You know, you always want to keep yourself in practice. That's important. Like Sequoia said, the big one is networking. It's a pain in the butt sometimes, and I know a lot of us are giant introverts, and it is like the worst thing ever. But like, you know, that it really is like one of the biggest catalysts for like starting your career and continuing your career and finding work is like, you know, getting out to places where you can meet other people who are creating work and sharing opportunities. Like a lot of things for us came from even just like going to the local drink and draw meetups where we met a lot of other fellow artists that were involved in the community, and over time you become friends with them, and you know, you guys swap tips, and like if somebody's involved in a show and they'll be like, oh, do you want in on this, or like, so networking is definitely a big one. And then I would say like take pride in your work. Like, you know, how you present yourself is very important. Like, you know, nobody's gonna respect you or hire you if you don't respect yourself enough to, you know, present your work proudly or cleanly, and also like if you can't even show your work professionally, nobody's going to take you seriously as a professional. And I guess on that point, always have something online where you can show your work. You don't necessarily have to have a website, but even like if you just have an Instagram where you populate all of your work, or if you just make like a Behance or something, but like it's like super important now to have an online presence, like where if you meet somebody, they'll be like, oh, where can I find your stuff? Like, and you don't have an answer, like that immediately kills so many opportunities. I guess those are the main ones. Anything to add, Sequoia?
Definitely keep track of like your expenses. I would say that's also very important if you're going to be like a freelancer or working artist. There are plenty of platforms out there to do that, but also like if you are continuously getting work, to keep track of those clients so that if there's work that is needed to be done in the future, like you'll always have like a Rolodex to look back on of people that you have worked with and that you can continue to like go back to, or they can come back to you when they need the same or similar work to be done. Networking is important. Also, like finding ways to get your work out there is very important as well. Stuff like Vagabond, you know, places to share your work. Art shows like the Day Glow shows are really fun, like kind of all inclusive. You can be any kind of artist and participate in those kinds of shows. But yeah, connecting with your community is also really important. Like when I moved here from Tennessee, I didn't know that there was like an entire artist community. I just knew there was an art school here and I really liked it. And then I found out that there's an entire artist community as well as an underground comics community that, you know, takes place in Cleveland and in Ohio in general. So definitely keep your mind open in terms of what you can do within your art.
Cool, thank you. I think we had another question. Oh wow, we're getting a lot. That's great. Aaron asked, would you like to introduce yourself and read your question, or would you rather I read your question?
Oh, yeah, I can read my question. Thanks. My name is Erin Smith, and I'm a research librarian here at CASE, and I'm really interested in how creators communicate, and most of the artists and illustrators and comics creators that I follow are on Tumblr and Twitter, and you mentioned Instagram. And I'm just curious, how much does social media drive your presence, and do you get a great deal of interaction from particular platforms?
I do get a lot of like interaction on Instagram specifically. That's the one I use the most. But also like there are a lot of like public events that you can also get a lot of interaction out of. Like when we're talking about the comic book shows, we're not talking about like, you know, San Diego Comic-Con, but that is one of the places you can go to. But there's tons of like indie comic book places that you can just meet other artists and learn about what they do and what you do and all of that. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's super important to have like some sort of social media presence as an artist. I use Instagram a lot, and I think Vagabond, we've been kind of quiet on there lately just because there hasn't been much going on. But that's also where we've gotten most of our interaction and kind of audience around it is from Instagram. I think just because it's more visual platform. But I know there's a lot of comics people on Twitter. I think because it's more instantaneous and it's easier to share information more quickly there, I think. What was I saying? But like we found out so many opportunities, and like Sequoia said, shows, and found artists for the anthology through social media. Like recently I just got a small freelance opportunity because somebody who follows somebody else that a mutual follower of somebody that I follow on Twitter, like reached out to me. Like, you know, like that's just how things are happening now. And people are forming their own communities on there. And it's especially now when like events and meeting in person aren't always possible. I think a lot of people are gravitating towards there even more so.
Cool. And here, trying to see. We did have some more questions. I think Rob was the next one. Double check. But yeah, Rob, would you want to read your question? And
I mean,
introduce yourself?
Hi, Rob Wolf again. It's kind of already been answered somewhat indirectly when you were talking about networking and meeting people on the live events, but to get more into the specifics of it, I was trying to wonder what's the first step to actually get into specifically the conventions, the underground, the model conventions that might need that table to get to begin with.
So how to get into the shows. So a lot of shows have online forms that you can fill out. So throughout the year, well, not this year, but usually throughout the year, there's applications and that are released for different shows. There's, I think, is it 3 major ones in Ohio? There's Space, there's Genghis Khan, and there's CXC. But they release their applications to have a table throughout the year, and then they will pick you out of, those application forms. Some of the shows have it where all you have to do is sign up, and then you can be a part of the show. But they will have that kind of stuff listed on their website. And I think you can go online, and I know there's a website, was it through the MIB maybe, that has a list of comic book conventions throughout the United States. It
was Broken Pencil, sorry.
Broken Pencil,
It was so Broken Pencil.
Yeah, called Broken Pencil, that will allow you to look up shows that are happening, and then you can click on the link, and then it will take you to their page and tell you when their applications will be open, and then you can go from there in terms of applying to the show. Yeah, I think that's it for the most part. Once you get accepted, that's up to you and how you set your table up. That's a whole nother thing about how to present your work so that it's it's easy to approach and easy to show the work that you're trying to sell. But yeah, we can talk about that another time. Amalia.
Yeah, I meing Sequoia covered it pretty well. There's a whole bunch of shows out there, and it feels like new ones are getting made every year. Now, a lot of them have been pivoting to digital marketplaces or hashtags or online workshops. But in the future, you can head to that list. I think Sequoia was going to share it on there.
Mhm. I think
but-
Matt shared it. Thanks, Matt.
What's that?
I said I think Matt shared
Oh,
it.
thank you. But yeah, so it's just look around online, ask around, people, you know, read through the shows to see if it's like the audience, to see what they're looking for, to see if you kind of, if it's kind of the audience or the scene you're looking at, because, you know, some of them are more towards art books, or some of them are more towards zines, some of them are more mainstream comics. And some of that comes with a little bit of trial and error too. Like sometimes you'll get to a show and you'll be like, oh, whoa, this is not my scene. But, you know, but you get to still meet cool new people anyways. But I think it's a super good way to get into the scene and meet new people and see what other people are making. And a lot of the smaller indie shows are like super accessible as far as like pricing goes. Like some of them are anywhere from, some of the smaller ones are anywhere from like $15 to $30 a table. Some of them are even free or offer like scholarships that you can apply to so that you can table for free there. So it's just, yeah.
There's just too many shows to list as well.
Yeah. And they're like all over the country too. So like wherever you are, you can find one. And even if you don't get into a show, I would totally recommend like just going to one, just to, you know, go for the same reason I suggested tabling in one, to go see what people are making and talk to the artists. And it's just a, you know, just do it. It's cool.
So I'm realizing I skipped over David's question. David, if you wanted to ask your question and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sorry. So I had a second question. I didn't know if there's a limit. So I had another one as you were talking. So it's been thousands of years since I've been on the Case campus, and I can't remember the exact connection between CIA and Case Western Reserve. It was rather attenuated when I was there, but it struck me as you were talking. I was wondering if I think the notion of companies and businesses springing out of CIA is pretty fascinating, which is why I logged into this particular panel. I'm curious as to whether CIA students have access to education and just sort of, you know, basic, you know, entrepreneurial finance, you know, how to start up a business, you know, how to do that kind of stuff. I don't know, either through CIA itself or through Case Western Reserve. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity there. It should be available if it's not. That would be my reaction.
So like I said, I know they had the business practices classes happening while I was going there between 2010 and 2014. It kind of covered a little bit of everything in terms of like running a business, but also, you know, incorporating your art into it. I'm not sure if they still do it, but I guess Jill could probably answer that, and so can Heather.
Yeah, I was gonna say, actually how I know Heather, she did teach me a lot about finance and stuff like that, but there were different things you could sign up for with that class. It was like a professional practices class, so you could take an entrepreneurial section of it. I went more for like working in-house and like doing freelance. That was really more, I forget what it was called, but yeah, it was, so we did get some education on like taxation and stuff like that, and how to write off things, but yeah.
Interesting.
Hi,
Thank you.
real quick, this is Bob Sopko. I run something called CWRU LaunchNet, and we help students and alumni of CASE, CIA, and CIM. All you have to do is make an appointment with us, and we can help you. And if you two would like to reach out to us, if we can, you know, provide any input for you, we're more than willing to do that. We'd love to do it. And actually, the interface of CASE students and CIA students when they work together on something can be remarkable. Mm-hmm. So individually and also collaboratively. And I've got my contact information on the side.
Very good. Yeah, I know. I think I've seen some like engineering, like art projects come out of CASE during like the fashion shows. that CIA started putting on at MoCA.
Yeah.
It was really awesome. It
Yeah,
was just
the
like
late
blending art
show
and
or
technology.
something. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was so cool.
It rocked the house. And we're at CES, the largest show of innovation and discovery. And almost every year, we've at least one CIA student has joined us to that.
Mm-hmm. I also know that I got a lot of information from the teachers that also work at CIA, because not only are they teachers, they're also working artists. So they can also provide input into running your own business or starting, you're working yourself as a working artist. And also just kind of exploring resources on your own. ThinkBox is a fantastic place to learn about how things are made and how to get things done, I guess.
All right. And then we have one last question, just because we're running out of time. Matt, did you want to ask your question?
Can you hear me now? All right, yeah, hi. Case alumni, hobbyist cartoonist, Sequoia Amalia know me a little bit. So my question is, oh no, I lost it. What do you think the local comics community / ecosystem needs right now to financially, organizationally, and socially to stay strong, including the pandemic, including a whole background of how do cartoonists get paid? I know you two are extreme cornerstones to the Cleveland comic scene, so indie comic scene. So I thought I'd ask.
Good question. Well, I know a lot of the things I've seen have just been yeah, that's something to think about. My first thought just goes to organizing things to create within the community, benefits, as if we were to do a sort of, I've seen people creating zines or other anthologies where the profits will go to the artists, or organizing online marketplaces. I think that's the main thing that would be best. Is I think we need more organization in creating a space, virtual, I guess it'd have to be virtual, where people can come together and share opportunities or sell their work, or because I'm not sure that there's really anything going on like that right now in the Cleveland's comics community. And I guess that's something we could look into with, Genghis Khan was supposed to be this year, perhaps with having it pivot to a more online marketplace sort of thing, or using it as a platform to create opportunities for people to share their knowledge or work. It's definitely something we need to think about. What do you think, Sequoia?
Along the same line is that, but also introducing probably some grant funding that artists can apply for, specifically comic book artists, because I know there's not a lot of that out there to create work, or even, yeah, like you said, some sort of online event that is more catered towards comics and also towards your community, so that you can get the specific people that you want to communicate with. So.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I wanted to see the ideas flowing. There are a lot of really cool case people here and some powerful people here, so I just was curious.
Thank you so much for your question. I was going to say real fast before I give it back to Michael, I'm going to throw my Instagram and my LinkedIn in the chat. So if you were interested in connecting with me, checking out my work and talking to me, I already connected to Amalia and Sequoia, but yeah, I would love to connect with some of you and take more of your questions if you have anything specific about CIA and currently what's going on. But yeah, so Michael.
Right. And Jill, thank you so much for moderating. You did a great job. Awesome. Sequoia and Amalia, thanks for sharing. I mean, this is our first event that we've done in partnership with CIA. And David, to your question about linkages, there are some really interesting linkages given our proximity, given some of the institutional things that we do together, but there's room to do a lot more. And, you know, I'm glad my colleague Bob Sopko was on, because as he mentioned and Heather mentioned, you know, the work that they do at LaunchNet is open to the CIA community. And yeah, when ThinkBox is open, we always see CIA students using the sewing machines and 3D printers and laser cutters. It's been awesome to see the partnership, and would encourage those of you who are in town, and I know we have people joining from outside the region as well, but ThinkBox is a really awesome space when we're back to not social distancing and bumping into each other, which is really the purpose of ThinkBox. And these events, by the way, which we're doing obviously at this point via Zoom, once we're back on campus again, we hope to be, at least for those in Cleveland, together doing this. But Sequoia and Maya, thank you for sharing your entrepreneurial journeys, and I really wish you the best of luck in what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Just a couple
Thank you, Joe.
housekeeping quick things. We'll be back next week. We usually have in the summer months, we got about 2 of these a week. We have Chad Zimmerman, who's the COO and founder of Maha Global. He's done a lot of work in the healthcare space. He'll be with us on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And then next Wednesday, also at 1 o'clock, is Nick Neonakis, who's a Weatherhead grad. Nick has a lot of experience in the franchise business. So he has a company called the Franchise Consulting Company. So a little bit of a different take on business. And then the following week, we have Joe Keithley, who's the former CEO of Keithley Instruments and involved with the case community. And we have a number of other folks. And by the way, feel free to reach out to me with suggestions. We're continually trying to build, you know, and I think today was a great example of you know, not every entrepreneur is building an app or starting a software company. So I think Sequoia and Amalia, what you guys are doing, and we've got dentist entrepreneurs coming up, and we have a whole wide range of folks who we want to sort of expose in this series, because it's great to give voices to different kinds of entrepreneurship. So with that, again, thank you for those who joined with us today, and look forward to seeing you back on a future session, and let's keep in touch. Thanks, everybody.